A sea of contention, the South China Sea, a strategically vital waterway, has become a focal point of geopolitical tensions. Multiple countries lay claim to portions of this sea and its numerous islands. These overlapping claims have created a complex web of historical grievances, nationalistic sentiments, and strategic calculations. The dispute involves China, Vietnam, the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Brunei. Each nation has historical and economic reasons for its claims, making the situation highly volatile. The South China Sea dispute is not a recent development. It has simmered for decades, with roots dating back centuries. However, the dispute has intensified in recent years. This is due in part to China's growing economic and military might, which has allowed it to assert its claims more forcefully. This complex situation has raised concerns about the potential for conflict. The involvement of major powers like the United States further complicates the situation. It raises the stakes and adds another layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. China's assertions in the South China Sea. This vast expanse of water has become a focal point of geopolitical tension, with China's growing influence and assertive actions drawing global attention. China's claims in the South China Sea are expansive and controversial. These claims cover almost the entire sea, overlapping with the territorial waters of several Southeast Asian nations, including Vietnam, the Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei. They are based on what China calls the 9-dash line. This demarcation is a central element of China's territorial assertions. This line, first demarcated on Chinese maps in the 1940s, encompasses a vast swath of the South China Sea. It was initially drawn by the Republic of China government and later adopted by the People's Republic of China. It reaches close to the shores of several Southeast Asian nations. This proximity has led to numerous confrontations and diplomatic disputes over the years. The 9-dash line is based on historical claims. China asserts that its historical presence and activities in the region justify its extensive claims. China argues that it has exercised jurisdiction over the South China Sea for centuries. It points to ancient maritime expeditions and trade routes as evidence of its long-standing presence. It points to historical records and ancient maps as evidence. These documents, according to China, demonstrate its historical rights over the region. However, these claims are disputed by other countries and lack clear legal standing under international law. The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, UNCLOS, does not recognize historical claims as a basis for territorial rights. China's assertive actions in the region have raised alarm bells internationally. The deployment of military assets and the establishment of military bases on artificial islands have been particularly concerning. The construction of artificial islands, the deployment of military assets, and the harassment of fishing vessels from other countries have been met with condemnation. These actions are seen as attempts to solidify China's control over the disputed waters. Critics accuse China of attempting to unilaterally change the status quo in the region. They argue that China's actions undermine regional stability and violate international law. Despite international pressure, China has shown no signs of backing down from its claims. It continues to conduct military exercises and patrols, asserting its presence in the region. It views the South China Sea as a core national interest, crucial for its economic development and security. The sea is a vital shipping route, with significant oil and gas reserves, making it strategically important for China. This unwavering stance has made finding a peaceful resolution to the dispute extremely challenging. Diplomatic efforts have so far failed to produce a lasting solution, leaving the South China Sea as a flashpoint for potential conflict. While China claims a vast area of the South China Sea, other nations have equally strong counterclaims. This region is not just a strategic waterway, but also a treasure trove of natural resources, including vast reserves of oil and natural gas, as well as rich fishing grounds. Vietnam, the Philippines, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Brunei all dispute China's 9-dash line. This line, which China uses to demarcate its claims, cuts deeply into the exclusive economic zones of these nations, leading to heightened tensions and frequent confrontations. They assert their own sovereignty over parts of the sea and its resources. Fishing boats from these countries often find themselves in direct conflict with Chinese vessels, leading to dangerous standoffs. Vietnam, with a long coastline along the South China Sea, vehemently opposes China's claims. The Vietnamese government has consistently maintained that China's historical claims lack legal basis and infringe upon Vietnam's territorial integrity. It argues that China's historical claims are baseless and that its actions violate Vietnam's sovereignty. The Vietnamese people have taken to the streets in large numbers, protesting against what they see as Chinese aggression. The Philippines, another vocal critic of China's actions, bases its claims on its proximity to the Spratly Islands and its exclusive economic zone as defined by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. The Philippines has even taken its case to international arbitration, winning a landmark ruling in 2016 that invalidated China's expansive claims. Taiwan, though geographically closer to mainland China, echoes similar sentiments. Despite its complex political status, Taiwan asserts its own claims over the South China Sea, often finding itself in a delicate balancing act between asserting its rights and managing its relationship with China. It claims sovereignty over the entire South China Sea based on historical precedents. Taiwan's historical documents and maps are frequently cited in its arguments, adding another layer of complexity to the dispute. Malaysia and Brunei, while less vocal than Vietnam and the Philippines, have also taken steps to assert their claims. Both nations have ramped up their naval activities and have engaged in joint military exercises to bolster their defense capabilities. They have increased their naval presence and engaged in joint military exercises with other countries. These actions are aimed at deterring Chinese advances and ensuring that their maritime rights are respected. These Southeast Asian nations view China's actions as a threat to their security and economic interests. The Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN, has frequently discussed the South China Sea issue, seeking a unified approach to counter China's assertiveness. They are determined to protect their maritime rights and resources. Through diplomatic channels, military preparedness, and international legal avenues, these nations continue to challenge China's sweeping claims, striving to maintain peace and stability in the region. One of the most worrying aspects of the South China Sea dispute is China's island-building activities. These activities have not only altered the physical landscape, but have also shifted the geopolitical dynamics in the region. Over the past decade, China has reclaimed land and built artificial islands on reefs and shoals in the Spratly and Paracel archipelagos. This extensive land reclamation has transformed once submerged features into fully functional islands. These islands have been equipped with airstrips, harbors, and military installations. The infrastructure developed on these islands is sophisticated and capable of supporting both civilian and military operations. China claims that these islands serve civilian purposes such as search and rescue and environmental protection. They argue that the facilities are meant to aid in humanitarian efforts and scientific research. However, the construction of military facilities on these islands has raised concerns that China is militarizing the region. The presence of radar systems, missile batteries, and other military hardware suggests a strategic intent beyond civilian use. Critics view this as a way for China to strengthen its control over the disputed waters and project its power further afield. The militarization of these islands is seen as a direct challenge to the freedom of navigation in international waters. The island building has significantly heightened tensions in the region. Diplomatic efforts to resolve the disputes have been complicated by the physical changes to the landscape and the strategic advantages they confer. Neighboring countries see it as a blatant attempt by China to change the status quo by force. They argue that the artificial islands are a means to assert territorial claims and expand China's influence. This has led to increased military activity, with countries conducting naval patrols and military exercises to assert their presence and deter further Chinese expansion. The show of force is intended to signal that the international community will not accept unilateral changes to the status quo. The situation remains highly volatile, with the potential for miscalculation or an unforeseen incident to spark a conflict. The proximity of military forces from multiple countries increases the risk of accidental engagements. The international community is closely watching developments in the region, urging all parties to exercise restraint and seek a peaceful resolution. Diplomatic channels remain open, but the path to a lasting solution is fraught with challenges and uncertainties. Let's hope the conflict will be able to be resolved in peace. I hope you find this video insightful and stay tuned for more interesting facts.